Hey, everybody, welcome to another episode of Creative Careers, where we interview folks who are working in creative fields from all over the place. And so without further ado, I'm going to go ahead and introduce our guest for today, Tanya Gough. Thank you so much for joining us, Tanya.
Thanks for having me. I'm really happy to be here.
Yeah, so let's start off by just explaining what is it you do in the arts?
What do I do in the arts? Well, do you have about a week? Because it's quite a lot. So I have two jobs. So I have a consulting job in which I work in what we call content, which means that I do everything from writing content and writing things like blog posts and research papers and things like that for businesses. I also do digital marketing, which takes writing and sort of matches it up with a little bit of graphic arts. But then I'm also a programmer and a developer. So I also do things on the development side. So I build websites. And my real favorite thing to do is to build interactive programs, which lets me work with development, but also with the creative and finding ways of telling creative stories in an interactive way so that people can have some fun. And then in my free time, such as I have, I also am the founder of Story Builder. It's a creative writing platform that I built entirely myself, and it's designed to help new writers and people who've always wanted to write a book but don't know how to figure out how to do all of those pieces. So we help them with that. So I built the platform myself. We're getting ready to launch pretty soon. I get to do all of the development work for that, but also the content. And then also, because at some point I've also been a teacher, I get to sort of incorporate that as well into the platform and help people understand what they're doing as they go along.
Yeah, because I'm especially interested in this sort of intersection between the arts and the tech side of things, the arts and development, because sometimes those seem to be not in the same area. And I love how you're using both aspects of that. So I'd love to talk about how did you get here? What made you interested in this sort of intersection, and what did you do to make it happen?
Yeah, so my life has sort of gone one way and then went the next way, another way, and then sort of wrapped around and came back to where it started. I started in the arts very, very young. I actually started dancing ballet when I was 3, and I live in Toronto, Canada. The Canadian National Ballet actually tried to recruit me when I was very young, and my parents didn't want that for me, so they said no, unfortunately. But as I grew up, I studied mime for 8 years. I can't believe I just said that on video. So now somebody's going to use that against me. And I was very, very active in our theater department. We had an amazing theater department in my high school, which was in New Hampshire. So I was born in Canada, but I grew up near Boston. So I've always sort of had theater and performance as a driving force through my life. And from that, writing sort of started to evolve as something that I just really enjoyed doing on my own. I was always a really, really heavy reader. I love to read. So that's sort of where I started from. And then I was also actually kind of really good at math when I was in school, but because of the school that I went to and the way I grew up, girls really still weren't encouraged to do math. And I think we still have some challenges there, but things are a lot better than they used to be. But it was really my English teachers who encouraged me and who gave me a chance to explore things. I had 2 great English teachers in high school who pushed me into Shakespeare, and that continued into college. And then when I finished university, I ended up getting a job teaching English in Japan. And I went there not knowing I had a month to prepare. I didn't speak any Japanese. I just went. I got to teach in some junior high schools there for a year. And then I came back and I used that money to help me pay for graduate school, and moved to San Francisco for a little while after graduate school. So I was there briefly until I was hired to go back to Japan to teach again for Sony. And I lived in Japan again for 3 years. And then I came back and ended up not really knowing what I wanted to do. So I was really at a crossroads. And when I was trying to figure out what I wanted to do, I went to Stratford, Ontario, which was near Toronto. I was living in Toronto then. And they're really famous they have this huge famous Shakespeare theater festival in Stratford. And I had never gone, even though I went to school in Toronto and I was really close by. I just didn't have any money when I was in grad school, but I did. And I fell in love with Stratford. And I wanted to be there. And within a few months, I moved to Stratford. I opened a CD and video store back when those were a thing still. It was toward the end of the thing. So And I opened a store and I started in business in this new town. And I stayed there for 10 years. And as I was there, I also, because we had this connection to Shakespeare, I was able to build out a Shakespeare catalog. So we started selling to schools, and I ended up with customers in 42 countries around the world. I had 3,000 items related to Shakespeare at one point in our catalog, which was pretty amazing. And it was early days of e-commerce. So I really just started learning how to do the web as I was going along. So by the time I closed down the store, I was doing all the development work on the website. I'd gone from very, very simple websites to much more interactive ones. And we learned how to do online ordering, and all of those things sort of happened as we needed them. And we just figured it out. Then Napster happened and the CD store had to go away. And then YouTube and Netflix happened, and that became very big competition for my company, and Amazon started to grow. And it was pretty clear that I couldn't continue doing that. So I ended up closing down my store and took my skills that I had learned in web design, web development, and ordering information, and turned it into a career called content management. So really, it was all about taking different kinds of information and organizing it and figuring out systems that would develop them. And then it really evolved from there. I started social media as part of that. Digital marketing sort of became a natural part of my job. And a few years later, I was doing it all. So.
Yeah. When we started this series, it was partly to kind of combat the idea that working in the arts or in creative fields means you are an actor, you are a singer, you are a painter. And so I'd love to hear about some of the ways that you are able to use your artistic skills as part of this, some of the ways that you're able to kind of fulfill the artistic parts of your soul through the work that you do with this.
Sure. Yeah, I think that development is actually an incredibly creative thing to do. And we have this weird thing in our head where people think that doing computer programming is a math thing, but it's really not. And one of the things that people don't realize is that one of the greatest predictors for success as a programmer is language ability. So if you're a good communicator, then you're going to be a really great developer, programmer, because it's about understanding like all this different information and understanding how it's all interconnected. And surprisingly, girls are really, really good at programming when they're given a chance to do it. So it's it's a weird thing. And I think that that a lot of people who are in the arts tend to look at things like computer programming or digital marketing, and they get afraid of it because they think that it's all about numbers and structure and things that confine them. But it's actually it's actually a tool set that lets you make things that don't exist. And I think that's the most amazing thing about development. We have whole worlds that are created out of, in development. You can go and you play video games. That's an entire world that was developed from ones and zeros that somebody programmed into a computer. And it's the combination of those two things. I think that really you can take your creative side and find ways to put it out in the world that are completely new and completely innovative.
I really love that. So let's talk about what are some of the skills that you really had to work on for yourself to get to this professional level. And that could be either artistic skills you brought into your professional work, or more professional skills that you integrated with the arts.
I think that they're all really interconnected. I think that people who come from creative arts background, I think they are more resilient. People who, if you're in the creative arts, I mean, you've come through life learning about rejection. You've learned to keep going. You're persistent, but you're also really, really creative in the way that you run your life, because you don't always have jobs. You don't always know, where your next meal is coming from, or where your next paycheck. So you need to figure out how to do all of those things on a real personal sort of life level. And if you turn around and apply that to your job, you can succeed in ways that you can't possibly imagine. I really strongly believe that my background in theater and in creative and all of the creative arts that I've been a part of are really sort of allowed me to think outside the box. They allowed me to think on my feet, and they allowed me to think of the world as being so much bigger than just myself. And I think that's really the key piece of it. And when it comes to the programming side and the business side of things, I just learned as I went. And again, I think that's a product of coming up through an arts background, because, you know, I had my store and we decided we were going to put in a video rental section in the store. I didn't have a program or a system to help manage that. So I learned how to code, so that, you know, a new coding language, so that I could figure out how to plug it into our current point of sale system. You know, and everything you do is, you know, programming, a lot of programming is actually like that anyway, where it's like nobody knows anything, right? You know, it's all really about, what do I need to do? Well, you know, what are the best tools to do it? Okay, now how do I do this thing? And then you go on to the next problem. And I think that creative arts people are, again, uniquely qualified to solve life and problems and work that way. I think that's great.
Awesome. So if there's a student watching this, I'm thinking, you know what, I'm interested in math, and I'm interested in the language, and I'm really interested in maybe how to combining these two into something that may be more creative than they thought it was. What's something that they can start working on now to kind of prepare them for further steps into that field?
I would just say, start playing around with things and inventing on your own. A lot of these combinations of sort of science side or math sides of things and the arts, nobody's thought of them yet. I mean, my creative writing platform looks at, you know, helps people in a way that nobody's really thought about before, because a lot of people who've done systems before are programmers who don't really understand the creative side of life, or they're created by creative people who tell developers what to do, and they don't really understand each other. But the idea of being able to marry those two into a platform that really integrates the two and helps people on an organic level, that's something that I can do because I understand both sides of the problem. So what's your problem? Figure out what it is that the problem is that you want to solve, and what are the tools that you bring to solve that problem, and what are you missing from that, and then go and get that skill, because you can. And none of that is hidden from you. Everything's learnable. Yeah.
Awesome. I love that. It's such a unique perspective from the arts from what we've had before. So I thank you so much for being willing to come on and share your experience with us.
Oh, my pleasure.
Awesome. All right. Well, thank you, everybody. Don't forget to come back. I might need to re-record this part because I don't actually know what our schedule is going to be changing to. All right. Thank you so much, everybody. Don't forget to come back next time. Keep an eye out for our next Let's Be Creative video. We will see you then.